Now, as far as the flying, did you have any surprises that were unexpected?
Not at all. It was very stable in the air, as you can see from the video. We had typically in the Midwest, unless we fly first thing in the morning or late at night, we're going to deal with 5 to maybe 10 mile an hour gusting winds. So that's something you have to get used to. And with this being a high wing trainer, it's very lofty, tons and tons of lift, especially with a couple of features: of spin control, airfoil extensions on the front of the plane, which you can remove as your skills improve, and also with the flaps, the training flaps that are built in. You get a lot of lift and a lot of drag in this wing. When you think, well, drag versus lift, it's slow and it's very lofty. So 5-10 mile an hour gusts of wind will push you all over the place. So if you relax on the sticks, it has a nice dihedral to the main wing, so it'll settle into a comfortable glide again. So don't get too jumpy on it if it's a first-time flyer for you. It's a very good self-correcting trainer plane. Very short rollouts. It's in the air in no time flat. Tons of power from the Speed 400 power plant. And also nice glide slope, very slow. You could go, and in fact in the video we show a high dive. We come in with engine off and fall right into a nice smooth landing. It just, the brakes are on with those speed flaps. So.
And I noticed you did some fairly easy aileron rolls, loops, basic aerobatics. You really seem to have to fight your way through them.
Loops are easy. It's really quick on the loops, and again, so much lift on a high wing plane. Rolls are a little lazy with all the stuff hanging off the wing. All of these
but they didn't lift aids.
No, they were a little wallowy. I mean, you have a dihedral on the main wing as well, so it wants to kind of lumber through that invert, and it wants to self-correct very quickly, which is what you want on a trainer model. It's not an aerobat, but once you pull these extensions off and the flaps, it'll be much more smooth through the rolls. But there's a couple things built into the Nexstar that I do like. One is the airframe itself. The nature of the airframe makes it very tough and rigid. It's a billet balsa. They're surprisingly tough. I think we've talked about this before. They'll handle a lot more abuse than you think. But very flexible landing gear. You'll notice this main gear will give a lot, so you can have a really...
The key word is flexible, not springy, because I noticed when you landed, this did not bounce you. It didn't want to bounce. It basically acted as a shock absorber that squatted down on the mains and really took the abuse.
Bring her in a little bit tail heavy so that main gear can absorb it, and because these are pretty springy, your nose gear tends to be a little springy. Come in on the rears and let it absorb that major impact, and it'll float right in nice for you, and you can settle on pretty rough surfaces.
Well, speaking of rough surfaces, we weren't able to fly where we normally fly, so we were kind of forced to improvise a little bit on our landing strip. It was not as smooth as we would like, but I'll tell you, the Nexstar handled that landing strip like a charm. It really did.
Other planes we've tested in that same environment, we had to put larger wheels on to be able to handle the landing in that rougher area and handle it smoothly. So any plane at decent speed typically will handle it okay, but as soon as you start to slow down, it'll throw it all over the place. The Nexstar was amazing. It was like it had shock absorber suspension on the landing gear. So very forgiving plane, excellent trainer, good performance. So let's go ahead and head to the scoring.
All right. Our first section in model characteristics is build as advertised. And this plane definitely built as advertised. If you do not deviate from the directions, build it according to the directions, you'll have a very nice, solid, flyable plane. No surprises, very few pieces to put together. Excellent model for a first-time builder. Makes it even that much better of a trainer. The finish is exactly what you'd expect on today's ARFs. The covering is done nice, very few wrinkles, nothing that can't be taken out with a couple minutes of the iron. As far as power, that's our third rating. Power is perfectly matched for this plane. I think as time goes on and you get a little more comfortable with flight, you remove some of these the pieces that they have on to assist in the flight characteristics. You can probably play around with different prop configurations, pull a little bit more power out of that Speed 400. Super Tigers did a good job on the motor. It's aptly suited for this plane, so I have no complaints with that. We rated that at a 4 out of 5 for power. Ground handling. That's, I think, of all the characteristics so far, the ground handling on this Nexstar Mini was outstanding. I think you have to agree with me. It was like it was on rails. Durability, we gave it a 4 out of 5 for the durability, and that's just because it is a build-up balsa. Build-up balsa planes tend to be a little more susceptible to hanger rash and damage in transporting. It's easy to puncture through the covering, unlike a foam plane. But definitely a good solid rating. Overall, I'm very happy with the build characteristics of the plane.
Good. Now, our pilot experience review is broken out in 5 different sections. The first being flight as advertised. With this being a trainer model, we expected a very docile airframe, a very high lift wing. We expected a lot of air recovery, built-in air recovery in the airframe design itself, being that it's dihedral main wing, and it met all those expectations. It was very much a docile, predictable trainer model. The flight experience, I think for some newcomers, and this is not specific to the Nexstar Mini by any means, but all built-up balsa trainers, is they're very lofty. So if you're in a breezy condition, if it's in 5 or 10 mile an hour gusty winds, it's going to fling the model around, and it kind of makes some people unsettled when they're getting used to the sticks. They want absolute rock-solid control. If that's the case with you and you're flying in slightly windy conditions, just relax. Let the model self-correct a little bit. Make minor corrections. It will catch up in most cases. The next category is flight time. With the Speed 400 Super Tiger motor, with the prop selection that came in the model, and with the battery that was specified for it as well, the 1250 milliamp hour battery, we had extremely long flight times, greater than 10 minutes, and it's really, it depends on the conditions, depends on how much throttle you use, but you can expect greater than 10-minute flights with this model. Upwards, in fact, I think we got close to 20 minutes. We got up there and played with the wind for a while. We did a little bit of gliding, and then we got almost 20 minutes out of a battery. Really no problem. We still had some punch when we got to the ground. So 5 out of 5 on flight time. The next section is field size. This isn't really a rating, but rather a guideline. This is a park flyer. You can take this very comfortably down to your local park, and in fact, if they've got a blacktop driveway or a blacktop parking area, stay away from cars, follow the AMA guidelines as far as your flying conditions, where you fly, and the choices you make. In fact, we also have guidelines on our website as well. Be mindful and make sure you don't damage anybody's vehicles or you get in proximity of other people. This prop can injure people, so be responsible, but you can very easily take this off of very tightly mowed grass. In fact, what you can do as well is put slightly bigger wheels on it. Sure. You can always grab some Dubro wheels, some park flyer wheels, and increase the wheel size, and that'll allow you to fly off a little longer grass and rougher terrain. Portability, now that's another thing too on the pilot experience. We all have to take these things out to fly them somewhere. Yes. So how easily can you fit this in your car? With this wingspan, it's going to be a little difficult to put it in with a couple other models. In fact, when we haul, we have 2 or 3 to take with us at a time. Yeah. The Nexstar was great. You have one bolt on the main wing. You pop that off, you unscrew it. You have a Y connector for your 2 ailerons. You unplug the 2 ailerons, and your top wing, your main wing's free. So it very easily and very quickly slips into a small, thin space in your vehicle. So portability got a 5 out of 5, and you want that with a trainer. You don't want a production to go out to the field and actually get the thing up in the air. You want stick time. The final section in pilot experience is skill level, and now what this is a trainer, so you'd expect it to be. We have intro, intermediate, and advanced. It is an intro plane. With that said, however, it's a high intro plane, medium to high intro plane. The reason being is if this were a belly lander, if it didn't have landing gear, making that transition from wing to wheel is a challenge. Sure. Regardless of what your skill level is, it's always a challenge. If you come in and you're dealing with a crosswind, which we very rarely have a perfect head-on wind, we have a slight crosswind, we're compensating with the rudder, which means we're also turning that nose wheel, that gear, the steerable gear, be it a tail dragger or a tricycle gear. So as soon as you make that transition to wheel, it wants to shoot off in the direction of the rudder. So wheeled planes are always going to be a little more of a challenge. Sure. But the Nexstar, again, we've already said the landing gear was extremely forgiving, so it handles extremely well on the ground. So it's definitely an intro model, but it's built up balsa, so it's not going to be quite as forgiving of hard landings and impacts as some of the foam models out there. And the scale also accommodates micros. And microplanes can handle tremendous abuse. They don't have the mass to be able to do damage to themselves. So as long as you kill the power on a micro, you can flop it into the wall, you can land it in the ground, and it's going to handle it pretty well. Yeah. So a skill level is still intro, but it's a high intro. If you have any other questions about the Nexstar, you want to look at more information on the website at 2bfly.com, you'll find more information under the review. Some stock photos and also some different specifications that we discovered when we were working with the model. And you'll also find additional model reviews out there as well. Now we have a buyer's guide that leans towards different skill levels and different planes that are able to accommodate those different skill levels. The Nexstar Mini would fit perfectly in the build-up balsa trainer category. Definitely. It would fit the picture perfect. It has all the characteristics. And I think jointly, we highly recommend the Nexstar Mini, which is always fun. It's always better to do a review where you're excited about the product. I think this thing's going to last a long time. I don't see Hobbico needing to change it at all. No. Keep it on the market, and you're going to be making happy pilots for a long time to come. Definitely, I agree. Well, thanks for joining us, and look for more reviews on www.2bfly.com and also on our YouTube channel at Two Brothers Hobby. I'm Kurt Gornick. I'm Rob Gornick, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.